2, 1.
And we're live. This is the 24th? Is that true? The 24th Decentralized Data Now podcast, or whatever this is, vlog, where we are trying really hard to bring awareness to the points of centralization that sometimes people don't see. We started out as a push for open source block explorers, but thankfully POA Network created Block Scout, and so now it's just bringing awareness to the other opportunities we have in the crypto space to really focus on allowing users to own their data and have access to data in a decentralized way. So I'm Griff Green. I work with Giveth, the Common Stack, DAppNode, IDN3, and a bunch of other projects as a major supporter to just kind of push random movements forward, including this one. And I'll pass it to Jay. Want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Jay Rush. I've been touting the need for decentralized data for about 100 years, as far as I can tell. So I think it's really important that we do decentralize the data, and eventually we're either going to decentralize the data or it's going to centralize us. So nice to be here. 24. That's crazy.
Yeah, right? Okay, Alexi, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm founder of Bloxy info website, which is Ethereum analytical tool and explorer. And I'm interested in mostly at making the data valuable, especially the on-chain data from different blockchains to be valuable as information to different entities, businesses, people, whatever. So this is my all latest projects are actually around that.
Nice. And I know Kris doesn't usually talk, but Kris, do you want to introduce yourself? You put all this work into making this happen.
Sure. So I'm Kris, and I haven't put in all that much work. I'm just supporting Griff with the organization of these calls, and so I'm just listening in. And I personally want to thank especially Jay for making yet again one of these calls possible. I just noticed when I was looking at the funding of organizing this call that we will have funds to do even a 25th call. So thank you so much for doing that. So that's me.
Yeah. Thank you to all the Gitcoin supporters. Without your work, without your donations, we wouldn't be doing these calls. So thank you again. And if you want to support this call, of course, you can go to our Gitcoin page and support us in making this space available for other people with interesting projects. Speaking of interesting projects, Alexi, do you want to kick this thing off and tell us about your new project, Bitquery?
Yeah, sure. Let me try to share the screen first. Can I do that?
Yeah, it's in the bottom left corner.
Oh, yes. Does it work for you?
Does anyone else see it?
Yes, I shared the screen. So this is our...
You might need a minute before it comes up.
I'm not seeing a screen.
Yeah, I don't see the screen. Are you sure you're sharing the right screen? Maybe try resetting, refreshing.
Give me a second.
Yeah. Well, maybe while we beta test the tech with you, Alexi, Jay, are you ready to show off Trueblocks?
Sure. If you'd like me to, sure.
Yeah, because I think we can kind of while you share Trueblocks, we can figure out what's going on with his situation.
Okay. Let me see if I can figure out how to share the screen here.
Yeah.
Where?
It's in the bottom left corner. If you move the mouse, there's like a little television screen.
I see.
You know, this is the joy of being open source maximalist.
I think I'm sharing now.
Yeah, we see your screen.
So this is Bloxy. I want to highly recommend Bloxy. It's amazing how many different things you can view on this website. So I'm going to talk about Trueblocks. So a lot of you probably have seen this before if you're familiar with this podcast, but we are always running a node. This node I'm running on a local machine. I'm running on a local desktop computer. This one's only caught up to block 5 million. Excuse me. So we also have a node running on a Linux box up in our upstairs offices. So I'm actually on the demo. I'm going to be using that upstairs Linux box, which is caught up to the front of the chain. The first thing we built was this scraper that allows us to pull. This runs every 14 seconds, and it looks at every new block, and it pulls every address from the chain. And we dig as deep as we possibly can down into the data. And we're building an index. So you can see here it's up to block 9.5 million. And right there, it just wrote another piece of the index to the database. So once we have this index of addresses, we didn't want to create a regular Web 2.0 database because then it becomes our data and we're serving it to our users. What we wanted to do instead is build something that we could share with our users. So what we do is we take this index and we break it into chunks of data of about 500,000 appearances of addresses. So here you can see, can you see the screen?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, so here you're seeing that between blocks 1 and 208,000, there were 13,000 unique addresses, and they made up 500,000 appearances. We call them appearances. So in those blocks, 500,000 address appearances happened. And every time we get
if you can even make your screen a little bit bigger, that would be awesome. You just made it bigger and it was, oh yeah, now we're getting there. Thanks, man.
Okay, so between blocks 1 and 208,000, we found 13,000 unique addresses, and they appeared 500,000 times. And then we chopped that chunk of the index off, and we write it to IPFS here. And we do that for we're constantly looking at all the blocks. So here, between block 3.2 million and 3.24 million, we found 42,000 addresses and 500,000 appearances. So every time we get to 500,000 appearances, we chop it off and create an IPFS file. And this way, as our users use this software, different people will get different chunks of this index, because what we're going to deliver to them is not the actual data. We're going to deliver them this hash. So our API is going to be very minimal. They'll ask us, where is my address? And we'll tell you, it's in these chunks of the index. And then you're going to download those chunks of index local to your machine. And this way, it naturally just by using the software without doing anything else, the index gets naturally distributed across the user base. And we, the developers of the index, can't hold the index hostage and force you to pay us for access to this data. And this is what I always thought of as decentralizing the data. We want to give away the ability of anyone to capture the index, because I think the index is the most important part. And then once we have an index, now we can create what we call monitors. And a monitor is in this piece of software that's looking at the data every 14 seconds. If we've created a monitor, we'll just add to the database for these monitors. So here we're currently monitoring about 28 different addresses, and we're just showing that this particular address had 4. This is the dark DAO. Here's the DAO that has 217,000 records in it. But what we did, because we want to run on a small machine, is we don't extract the whole data from the chain. The only thing we extract is the list of appearances. And you can see that for the 217,000 DAO transactions, it only takes up 1 megabyte on our hard drive. And this is how we accomplish what we always wanted to accomplish, which was running on a small machine, but giving a user access to any data they wanted. So I'm just gonna click on one of these and then click Explore. And you can see down here, it's running, this is the API running, and that just delivered all of the appearances for this address here. And now we can scroll through that address, but you can see down here where the API is happening, that we're actually hitting the node to get the actual data for that transaction for that address. And what we found is that the only thing that the node really doesn't have that it needs to have to build a fully decentralized blockchain explorer is an index of address appearances. And that's basically exactly what we built. And we built it in a way that we can't capture it and we can't keep it because we're going to literally give it away to anybody that wants to use it.
It's so beautiful. TJ, it's so beautiful. How do we get this built into the Ethereum nodes? Like, is that an option?
Well, see, I always was worried that because the Ethereum nodes are already kind of giant, monsters, that you can't really add a new feature to the node. What you have to do is maybe add an optional feature to the node. So the Besu node is really interesting because they have plugins, and we were talking to Dano from that team, Denver, and we're thinking that we could build a plugin. See, we kind of know exactly what has to be done to extract the appearances, and it would fit right in a plugin that it would be so much more efficient because right now we're using the RPC to get the data, and if we're right in the node software, we can just write this data straight out. So
and Besu is the Java node that is run by the Consensus Pegasus team. Correct?
Yeah, it used to be called Pegasus or something, and they changed it to Besu. It's part of the Hyperledger project as well. So
and that's a node that is running right now on Ethereum.
Yeah, and they just recently added parity traces to their node, so we're going to actually use it to test how well they've implemented parity traces as well.
Can you show us more about the UI while you're still live streaming? Because this is completely new, right?
Yeah, this is all brand new. We basically built a version of this in a database program a couple months ago. This is kind of the same thing. It's not as far along. I'll show you my favorite feature. You can go here and change the skin, so it's skinnable.
Ooh.
I know.
So someone could even whitelist this, use this as their own block explorer for their own DApp, and they could skin it.
Yeah, and that's something that's really become interesting, and I didn't really expect is once you have a list of all the transactions that you're interested in, say here. As I'm walking through this list of transactions for this address, I'm going to bump into MakerDAI. I'm going to bump into ENS. I'm going to bump into all the DAO, maybe all these different smart contracts. And this is how I, Jay Rush, want to see my interaction with Maker. I don't want to go to Maker and then later go to Giveth and then later go to a DAO and then later go to Mullen. I want everything to come to me. And if you have a list of all the transactions, then you can actually scroll straight through your own interaction with the chain, which I think is really, really interesting.
Do you know how big all of this data ends up being? Like if you end up adding just this tracking of addresses to the node, like how much data does that add? You said it was 1 megabyte for all the DAO transactions.
It's it's about 32 gigabytes for what I call the digest or the index of the data.
Okay.
And then the other thing that we do is, as we're scrolling through transactions, we're caching that transaction locally so that it's about 100 times faster than asking the node through the RPC. So our cache for transactions right now takes up 150 megabytes more. We cache prices, we cache ABI stuff. Let me make one further point. What I'm finding is naming things is literally the most important part of this whole project. So you can name things like addresses, and here's all the pre-fund addresses. Here's known tokens and the DevCon 2 tokens, for example. So here's Baki Puba's DevCon 2 token. And now I can explore this. And here it's scraping, you can see it's scraping Baki's address. And prior to this, we didn't have any data about Baki on our system, but now we're adding, maybe another megabyte or so to scrape Baki's address. And now this is Baki's transactions. So, but see, I don't have that naming function built into this version, but it should say this was Baki's address right here. And then as I'm scrolling, it becomes very obvious what's happening.
Do you consider adding reverse ENS into it?
Yeah, yeah. There's probably 5 or 6 sources of names, like Humanity DAO, Kickback is the source of names.
It's too bad Etherscan's. I wish Etherscan was open source, because they have quite the collection of names.
No, absolutely, but that's the whole point, right? The fact that the community doesn't have that collection of names is not good for the community. Yeah. The community should be curating these names. And then function names are exactly the same. So here we're collecting function names as best we can. But again, it's like only the community is going to be able to build this list of names. But
yeah, honestly, we're so lucky that Matthew Tan is such an awesome guy.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But
the power they have is it's a little much for a decentralized system. But it's so necessary. And
well, that's what decentralize the data is. We have to kind of understand that only the community can build this community thing.
Yeah. So it's always it's one of the problems with this is that we have a benevolent data dictator in Etherscan, and they truly are benevolent. They provide such awesome service for us. But here we are, and this is one of the problems is how do you no one is trying to overthrow a benevolent dictator, because they're doing a fantastic job. And so
I know I always feel bad. I always feel bad because I'm not trying to say something bad about it. It's just the nature of this thing. I think it will ultimately not work if we don't decentralize the data, basically.
Yeah. So, do you have any projects that are using Trueblocks right now that are working with Trueblocks?
Every time I get a potential user, I explain them all this stuff, and then I tell them they have to run a node of their own. And I haven't gotten over that.
They get stuck there.
Yeah.
They get stuck at running a node. Oh my God, this is so sad. That is so sad.
Nobody wants to run a node, but I love DAppNode, and I had since the first minute I heard about it, because it solves that problem for me exactly. So I'm like an evangelist for DAppNode. So I actually bought one for a friend of mine, and I gave it to him. So just because I wanted him to use it. So,
yeah. Oh, what a guy!
Now I can run against any remote node. So I could run against Infura, for example.
Yeah.
But because I'm scraping so heavily, I immediately overflow their ability to deliver. So it doesn't.
Have you talked to Infura?
I've talked to them a number of times, but just for this reason or that reason or this reason, it just doesn't quite come to fruition. But I think if you think about what I could do for them, basically I could lower the number of times people query by 100-fold, because they would never query twice for the same data.
Yeah, and it would all be cached. It'd all be cached for them.
Cached locally, and it would be immensely faster for the end user because it's cached locally.
I mean, it seems like it would save Infura a decent amount of server speed in space, right? Like
because the RPC is kind of missing something. It's missing an index. So what people do is they query for everything, between blocks 0 and 9 million. That's the way you use the RPC to get logs, for example.
Yeah.
And we have an index, so we can generate the logs immediately. And you saw it only takes like 20 seconds to scrape our index once we have the index. So
yeah, I'm a Trueblocks fanboy. So we could talk forever about Trueblocks, but we should probably let Alexi.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for
Bitquery. Oh man, absolutely. Thank you for your work, Jay. Right, really. I'm a big fan. So
happy to share. If anybody's interested, I have a Gitcoin grant as well, so you're welcome to donate there. Join us in our project. Help us decentralize the data.
Do you have a Telegram group or any place that people can go to like interact with you and talk about Trueblocks?
I need somebody to come and help me with community. I
need fine. I'm going to make one right now. I'm going to make one during this call.
I need a community person.
Okay, well, I can give you at least 10 minutes of community work right now, and then we'll move forward from there.
Well, thank you for your time. So
absolutely. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Trueblocks, t.me/Trueblocks. We'll see. I'll confirm at the end of the call.
Thank you.
Hey, so Alexi, how's the shared screen working?
Yeah, let's try again.
Yeah, let's check it out. I'm very excited to hear more about. Oh no, it doesn't. Nope. Try refreshing again. I'm pretty excited to hear about Bitquery because what you've done with Bloxy is pretty fantastic. Let's try that shared screen again.
So.
And Jay, you were talking about Bloxy. Maybe you can talk a little bit more. Oh yes, no, there it is, Bitquery. We see you. We see you, Alexi.
Does it work now?
Yeah, it works great. Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Take it away, man. And if you can zoom in a little bit on your screen, it'll always make it better for YouTube, especially on the phones. But this looks great, so you can start. You can take it away and tell us a little bit about Bitquery.
So this is our new project, and it has different name to separate it from Bloxy. And actually, Bloxy from the very beginning was visioned as a universal tool, not just Ethereum. And it just happened that it appeared to be almost completely Ethereum Explorer. But we initially want to build something that covers many blockchains and present different data. And so Bitquery is a logical continuation of Bloxy in this term. And so this is the Bitquery in GitHub. It has multiple components, Explorer, widgets, backend for querying the data warehouse. And it is in the active development. It's not a completely usable product yet. We will have some beta access for selected people at April. So we asked to sign up for that. And currently I will show some portions of the product that I can show today. Do you hear me well?
We hear you great. I think there's a little bit delay on our response time to you, but we hear you great.
Okay, cool. So the Bitquery, so now I show you the instance of the project that's actually installed. We can search. It looks similar to actually Bloxy, but it works completely different, and it has completely different actual architecture. So now I entered some Binance address. It shows the screen for the Binance address. Then I can enter like Ethereum address, and it will show the screen for Ethereum, and I can switch between like
Are you guys
blockchains very easily.
Are you guys seeing his screen change? Because all I see is github.com/Bitquery.
I'm only seeing GitHub.
Yes. I think you need to change tabs in this shared screen, if that's possible.
Yeah, Alexei.
Interested. So you mean that the tabs didn't switch when I switched the tabs?
Well, I don't know. I don't see your mouse moving either. So there might be, it might have just froze.
Oh no.
This is really too bad because I'm very excited about seeing BigQuery. And I mean, if you completely rewrote the backend for Bloxy, it's going to be, I imagine it's going to be pretty epic.
Well, I don't know if anybody here.
Let me try to.
If anybody used Bloxy, it's literally endless how many different ways you can slice data.
Can you show us what you love about Bloxy, Jay? Because I'm sure that will help while Alexei's still beta testing. Okay, hey, we see BigQuery now.
Yeah, there we go. I see it.
And I'll just
see
interrupt
it, right?
you. I'll interrupt you if your mouse stops moving.
So the idea of the BitQuery is to show any information from any blockchain in any view, in any slice, for any purpose, and for any application. So I mean website, mobile application, backend, whatever. So it's like universal tool for all the data access. And we're trying to accomplish this by the architecture where we not just have a visual picture of the data, but we also have a very live interaction with the data. So every widget that is shown here, so every this block with a plot, for example, or with a table, is a independent component that is rendered by JavaScript, but at the back end, this is GraphQL interface. GraphQL is pretty much standard now for interacting of client side to server side, and we use it as a query language. Essentially, we query data from the blockchain using GraphQL. This is the whole idea behind the BitQuery. So if you press just the button on the widget, it opens the actual query that you can immediately execute and get the result. So what you see, you can immediately get as in an application through this like an API or rendered in a different way. Of course, you can edit all this query. So you can just change here parameters, and it will be rendered on the screen with the parameters that you set up, right? Do you see now the screen refresh?
Yes, it's working great. Yes.
So I will try to show you how the actual parameters can be modified. For example, this is the transfer graph of transfers in Ethereum network. Yes, I think it's just Ethereum. But we can set up it like to show the, say, any other say coin. For example, we're interested just in currency which is has smart contract address, and we can look for example, DAI. What is the address of DAI? Do you remember? I will search it.
Not off the top of my head.
So this is just DAI, and we can execute it and get that.
Just so you know, that's Psi. I'm pretty sure, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yes, this is old DAI. Yes, and we can say limited to just for some period of time, starting from, say, and so this easily configurable, like in this way.
I love where you're going with this, by the way. This looks like an incredibly powerful visualization.
Yes, and let's it makes like by day. So now, I mean, we started with one graph, and I just added it to completely other problem. I now showing by days transfers of DAI token, and I press apply changes, and you see this graph on the screen. And this is pretty easy to construct new queries and display it. So that's why we used this GraphQL. And I will show you another example how to build completely new query, like because GraphQL has a nice feature that it's, so the documentation here, we have documentation tab. By the way, all this tool is the this is just third-party tool that we've taken as is. So this we have the self-documentation tab here that reads our schema, and the valuable part here that we can now just construct the queries just by typing, and it you see that it proposes all the, now it's only Binance Ethereum, but it will have much more in April. Like we support approximately 20 blockchains, including Tron, EOS, all Bitcoins and others at April. So I take Binance, say it takes transfers. And in transfers, I am interested in saying count, and I'm interested in date. And the date I am interested in at, say, again, the same format, say, year and month. And for transfers, I'm not interested in all transfers. I'm interested just in issuing of new tokens. They have a special type of transfer issue. And now I run it. I get how much new tokens were issued in every month in Binance network. Yes. And going further, I can now.
So you can kick out a beautiful graph and the JSON object just like that.
Yeah. But mostly, yeah, we try to combine the visual part with the data part, but we believe that data part is much more powerful rather than the visual part.
Well, it just depends on who you are, right? Like the data part is
mostly...
actually the data part is actually the powerful part.
It's personally me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the data is the actual power, but if you want to go and talk to the people that actually are paying for this stuff, the data doesn't get them. It doesn't get you anywhere. So what I like about what you're showing is that you have the data for the engineers, but then you have the visual for the biz dev guys that need to see this and be able to communicate it to their investors and to like why this is important to the end user as well, right? So it's a beautiful balance.
Yeah. We think that we will find this balance because we can put this JSON, which you see on the right, to the presentation that on the background of that. So, for example, right now I just query that returns every currency issued in Binance Chain by date. So they issued 19th of February, just 2 days ago. And I can add, for example, the name and see it again. So now I know the name. It's called Ubit. Yes. So this way, it's very easy to build queries. And what's important, these queries are built in universal way. So I can build the same query starting, say, from Ethereum, and it will also be the same, like almost the same structure. You see? And we will have here not just Ethereum Binance, we'll have all blockchains.
This is incredible. This is beautiful. How do you mind if I start Q&A?
Thank you. Wait.
Because I have some questions, man. I have lots of questions.
What do you mean about Q&A?
Well, I just am curious if there's anything else you want to show before I start bringing you with like questions about how you can sustain this work and various things like that.
Oh yes, just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I need 2 minutes to show the other tab. I hope it will switch now.
It worked.
It worked. So this is JS Fiddle, which allows you to just compose very quickly the components of website. And every widget here has JS button, and pressing this button, you get the code, which actually exact code that you put on your website, and it will render exactly this widget on your website. And the use case of that is when you are a project and say you want to show.
I'll just interrupt real quick and say, wow.
Sorry?
I just wanted to say, wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. The problem is Alexei has a delay, so he won't hear us talking.
So if we just copy this here and press like run, it will show the same graph. It's only in dark mode, so I take the light mode. It will maybe work better. Yes, and I then can. And what's important here that this includes the query that we built. So you can, in your application, you can build this query even dynamically, and you will show on your website any information that, say, you find in any, say in Bloxy or in any other like Explorer or whatever. You can build this query, put this on your website, and render what you need for your project to display like daily users, activity, transfers, or like big whales or something interesting, anything. And this only requires you to put the to get the widgets from here. This is in our project ongoing. This is widgets, and get this query from the schema that is self-generated, and that's it. And you get the graph, or you get the table, or a list of transactions, graph, whatever. And the last thing I wanted to say, so I'm finishing, that this is partially financed by Binance Fellowship Program, the project for widgets. Thank you. Now I'm done, ready to answer questions.
Well, thank you to CZ and the Binance Fellowship crew that helped you out with this, because this is amazing, man. This is really powerful. And I'm curious, how does the graph have a hosting that you're querying against? Like, is the graph hosting this, or are you hosting this? Like, when someone makes a query, where are they?
We are hosting.
What are they talking to?
You mean what is the ultimate database?
Yeah.
It's totally ours.
It's yours.
Yes, it's ours. It runs on. So I initially shown this the whole list of projects here. So we have the two front-end components, Explorer and widgets, and these are front-end components. These components are ActiveCube and ClickHouse Active Record. These two are helping us to convert our tables to this presentation of GraphQL. So we have customized queries, and using our existing warehouse, we serve this.
And so, how much data are you hosting to make this GraphQL database possible? Like, is it just obscene terabytes?
You mean how big is this?
Yeah. I mean, just for Ethereum.
I'm kind of just for Ethereum. For Ethereum, it's maybe 300 gigabytes.
Wow, that's not bad.
The biggest one is EOS.
Really?
The EOS is really big. Yes.
How much is EOS?
So the EOS, I think, is close to terabytes.
Oof.
Ripple is big as well. So the EOS,
really?
The next is Ripple, and the next is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is bigger than Ethereum.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Can I ask you a question? So you can query across 10 different coins and graph them all together?
Not 10. We have now 17 blockchains. They're actually available in Bloxy, but only as a backend. So there on Bloxy there is a status page which shows how they are indexed currently. This is the list of current data sets, and they are delayed to the head block.
Oh wow!
You stay away from the head. You stay away from the head.
Yes. But in terms of coins, there are every single blockchain, as you know, there are many coins.
Yeah.
It's even Bitcoin, it has a lot of coins inside.
Yeah, this is interesting. My work, I could never build because I wanted to run on just a laptop or a regular desktop machine. I could never build something like this. So for a query across the whole chain or across multiple chains, you know, it's pretty much absolutely impossible to build on a small machine if you want to do this kind of querying.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like a block explorer of all block explorers in a way, right? I mean, I don't know, because, you know, one of the things that I'm always worried about is how do we get funding to you guys? It's like you're building such a public service, and I'm always trying to think, like, how do we get funding towards these public goods? And I'm wondering if you've approached like Cardano or Stellar or Omni. I don't know about Omni anymore, but Tezos, Cosmos, to see if they'd be willing in funding you, you know, especially like Cosmos. They have a nice grant program. Maybe they'd be willing in funding a Block Explorer solution with Bloxy. What are your strategies for funding, Alexei?
To get any. Actually, we have real funding just now only from Binance, and it covers only a small fraction of, very small fraction of what we need. And I mean, we have commercial projects.
I would imagine it would barely cover the server cost. The fellowship is 15K, right?
We have approximately 30 servers right now.
Yeah, serious infrastructure. Well, I would definitely
it's really
Zcash could use this. This would be really interesting, and they have a solid funding stream, and Cosmos as well. Obviously, I don't know if Ripple needs it or not, but I bet they'd be interested. Ethereum Classic, I think, could also improve their, although they're using Block Scout right now. But I think that you have real promise here. I hope that this video will help support you, because what you just showed us today is incredibly powerful for anyone who wants to show their users what's going on in their DApp, what's going on with their economy that is on top of one of these blockchains. The ease of use to just display data is something I haven't seen before. So like to be able to build customized data plots just like that, I mean, it's a great expose of the power of GraphQL and Bloxy. So hopefully this video will help. Well, I guess, Jay, did you have any more questions on this?
Thank you for these words. It's really glad to hear that it's in a very small team. And
well, I know you've been working on this for years, and one thing I noticed in the Denver hackathon is just how much everything has advanced. There's so many more tools to build off of. There's so much more power. I mean, when we were building Giveth in 2016, we ran into scalability issues. We ran into like ease of use and user experience. People were building Giveth better than we could in 2016 with a full team and a year of work. Now there's so much infrastructure built out that you can do so many cool things. The people who are on the front end, like you, Alexei, are making, I mean, you're making life so easy for everyone with this kind of tool. And so we just got to figure out how to make it make sense to somebody to fund you to build this magic, you know? I mean, same with Jay and Trueblocks. So if anyone's out there, and you know, I think there are projects that are generous out there, that I saw IDEO funding optimistic rollups, and I know Rick from Balance. He's been on the show a couple times, and I think he would also be a good person to reach out to and see if there's anyone else who wants to, you know, make it easy for everyone to show the power of blockchain tech to normal users. But anyway, I I was going to talk about CAD, but we ended up running out of time. So I just want to maybe open the floor for Jay. I don't know if you have any last questions on Bloxy, and then we'll call it.
I did want to mention that I had gotten a consensus grant in December, and then we got the second half in February. So that's been very, very helpful. So thank you to Consensus for that. I think Bloxy is amazing. You just go there and you could stay on that site for an hour and a half and never see the same chart twice. So they're just pumping out amazing charts. I might use some of these charts in my work, because I can't generate a chart across all of Ethereum just based on the way my code works. So, but I think users would find it interesting. So it's great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, two different use cases for very powerful reasons, right?
Yeah, it's like some of the blockchain explorers are broad and wide and all across the whole chain. And I had to be small and straight and deep down into the guts of the thing, because just the way I chose to build it. So,
yeah. Well, if anyone watches this, please reach out to me or Jay or Alexi or Kris or anyone who, if you think that you want to participate in these projects. Oh, I never did. I got so absorbed in Bloxy that I couldn't make that Telegram group, Jay. But we'll try to do it. We'll try to do it in a second.
We have a Discord channel. I'll put it in the Telegram group for decentralized data.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, it's time. Thank you guys so much for coming to another Decentralized Data Now. We will have another one probably in 2 or 3 weeks. So
and we get to see the common stack.
Maybe, only if there aren't other people to shill, because I'm hoping this can be a platform for the common stack, and CAD simulations are really powerful. But I don't know that it's totally in the decentralized data now. I'm just, it's kind of an opportunity.
Terminal?
What?
Terminal? Do you know the guys from Terminal?
I don't know.
They're doing like IPFS websites, making IPFS websites easy. So they might be interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh man, I would love to have them on. This is what I've learned in this year more than anything is that project discovery is the biggest thing we're missing, honestly, in Ethereum space, because going to these hackathons and seeing all the different tools that some people are aware of and some people aren't, just going on donating on Gitcoin and seeing all the different people asking for funding that I never heard of, and was blown away by so many of these projects.
250 different projects or more.
Yeah, there's so many people working on so many things. We need an Ethereum yellow book.
When that Bitcoin grant thing was going on, I made a Twitter thing that said every single one of these projects deserves money, because they're all doing great shit. Yeah,
blown away. And it's really, what I really love is that we're stepping away. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Ethereum, but I love that we're stepping away from the Ethereum maximalism and being like, oh yeah, Gitcoin will fund a project that's using Cosmos, right? And because Ethereum doesn't have the solution for everybody right now. And it has a lot of really good solutions, but not all of them. Right. And sometimes you need your own blockchain. Sometimes you need something that another chain can provide, and it's okay to make a Gitcoin grant for it. That's the best part, So yeah. Thank you guys for coming to the show today. Hopefully it was fun, and hopefully you guys can edit this video and use it to shill to investors and grants in the grant community. That is really the purpose of this. Okay, so make use of it as much as you can, and we will see you guys in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.